Hello, in this video I'm going to show you three of the most common types of charts. I'm also going to show you how to create them in Microsoft PowerPoint. You can use any software you want, such as Google, for your final project, but I'm going to show you how to use it in this software. I find it to be very straightforward and helpful. So the first thing you need to do when you have a piece of data is consider the type of data it is and how it can be represented visually. One common way to represent data is in a pie chart. So here are some numbers from the Congressional Budget Office. And in this case, we have one set of data dealing with revenues, how much money the government takes in and where it's from, individual income taxes, payroll taxes, etc. And as you can see, when it's in a pie chart, you see parts of a whole. So you can see how the different pieces compare to others. And in this case, it's very clear that the biggest part of the pie is the individual income taxes. Payroll taxes are a large chunk, and corporate income taxes and other are quite a bit less, even at 271 billion and 205 billion, which obviously is a lot, but when you compare it to the overall pie, it definitely shows it to be much less. Similarly, with outlays and money spent, for a total of 4.1 trillion in 2018, you can see Social Security, defense, non-defense, Medicaid, Medicare, other, net interest on the debt, all have a certain portion of the pie, all have a certain portion of the total. And seeing it in this way really helps the reader visualize which pieces are taking up more share of something, in this case, the budget. Another common way to chart a different type of data is not when you're comparing parts of a whole, but rather when you're comparing how one thing can change over time. That would be a line chart. You've probably seen this type of chart before. And as you can see, if we're thinking about the federal deficit or surplus, so going back to that money from the pie chart, and this is also from the Congressional Budget Office, as the government takes in more than it spends, we're in a surplus, we're above zero. As you can see, that's not very common in our history from 1969 to 2018. When we spend more than we take in, we're in the lower portions here, under zero. That's when we're dealing with deficit spending. But it's helpful to measure that one thing, the federal deficit or surplus, over time, because as we can see, starting in 1969, when things were about equal, it's dipped and gone back up, but for a time in the 90s, it was up here above zero, but then from there, we've dropped quite a bit. So this can give you a real view as things change over time, what was happening in these different time periods could maybe help you with your argument. And finally, another helpful way to compare different totals from different categories of something, not when they're parts of a whole necessarily, but when you want to see how different things match up against each other, is through what are called bar charts. And if this was going up and down, Microsoft would call those column charts, but whatever you call them, bar or column chart, you're dealing with the same idea. So here, the Congressional Budget Office broke down the revenues in billions of dollars. So individual income tax, 1,684 billion, so 1.6 trillion. So you can see it goes all the way over here. These other groupings are less, and some of those are broken down even more to really show how they compare. So the pie chart showed you how it works as part of a whole, but this really can help you see how they're different compared to each other. So it's a different way to represent data. It really depends on what you're trying to get across to your reader. So those three types of charts I'm going to show you how to create right now. So when you want to insert your own chart, you go up to Insert and Chart. Pretty straightforward. So we'll start with a pie chart. There are different types, as you can see here, different shapes, different designs, but I'm going to just show you the most common. Once you click on that and click OK, it's going to give you a generic pie chart. It's also going to give you an Excel spreadsheet with some numbers. Now, if you happen to be measuring sales that were already in these proportions, then you'd be done, but chances are you're going to be representing something different. Now, this is going to be based on your own evidence, but I'm going to give you something easy. And as you can see over here, as I start to type in different things, the chart is going to change. So let's say I was measuring birthdays in an English 101 class. Now, let's say I was measuring in one group from January to March, and another one April to June, then July, through September, October through December. So far, nothing as much has changed over here except for the labels. But once I start changing these numbers, so let's say January through March, we have 5. April and June, we have 10. July to September, we have 12. And then in October to December, there's only 2. As you saw over here, hopefully the pie chart filled in the proportions based on the numbers I have over here. And when I'm done, I can exit out of this. Then I have my pie chart. And if I need to ever go back, I can right-click on my pie chart and click Edit Data. And then I can go and change and say, oh, you know what, July, September, that was only 8. I miscounted. So I change it over here, and it gets fixed. Next, I can create a line chart very similarly. Go to Insert, Chart, and Line. I'm going to do this, the most basic one here. Once I do this, you can see that they give me a basic default chart that has 3 series or 3 lines. Well, let's say, you know what, I'm only going to be measuring one thing, so I don't need series 2 and 3. So what I can do is I can take the cursor and get rid of these extra lines with this blue area. That's the active area. Then I can delete this other stuff that I do not need. And I'm ready to go. I only have one line over here. So what I'm going to measure now is, let's say I'm talking about a particular gadget. I'll keep it general right now, just to show you how this can apply to anything. I wanted to show how it changed in price from 1970 to 1980 to 1990 to 2000 and also 2010. So if I hit enter again, you can see the chart changed to fill in those numbers. And in 1970, this product cost $500. 1980 it cost $600. 1990 it cost $700. But you know what? In 2000 they actually started making it much cheaper. They figured out new technology, and all of a sudden it was only costing $250. And in 2010 you can pick up this gadget for $100. So once again, as I enter the numbers, it changes over here, graphs it quite nicely. And finally, I'll show you, I'll try at least how to create, there we go, design, insert, excuse me, chart, and I'm going to do a column chart. Remember, column or bar just has to do with the orientation. I personally like column charts better, but bar charts are perfectly fine. So once again, I'm only going to have one thing measured in this particular case, so I can get rid of series 2 and 3. Clean it up for me. And let's say I was going to compare the cost of different services that somebody might employ in their free time, so cost of services. And let's say one service I was looking for was going to a mechanic and getting an oil change. You know what that cost of service? Let's say it's around $50 on average. Then another service, maybe in this case I'm getting my house painted, and it's going to cost me $500. Then another service, I'm going to get my furnace ready for winter, and let's say I can get that done for $200. And finally, I'm going to have my lawn mowed. And you know what, the neighbor kid is going to do that for $25. So, as you can see, as these things get represented over here, it becomes pretty easy to read. And the names change here. But in this case, I'm looking at nothing but blue. Let's say I want to change it so that it's very clearly representing what I'm talking about and make it so that my reader can really see the difference. So maybe for the lawn mode, I can right-click on just that column, change the color, and hey, green. Lawn mown, right? House painted, you know what? I got my house painted orange, and so forth. Oh, so I can do all of that. And you can be even more creative from there as you're playing around with your design, as we'll see in another slideshow. But I really wanted to show you the different ways to create a pie, a line, and a column or bar chart, how you can represent those in your presentation, because that's the most effective ways to get your point across. You can use other types of visual representation of data as well, but those are the most important ones. They're going to come up time and time again.